I started when I was really young, so yeah, there wasn't a lot of distance between me and my kids, and so I had to, that's when I really wore a tie for many years. Later on, I started to wear nice dress shirts and, when I was older, and my sports coat. And that's, as you remember, that's how I dressed most of the time when you see me.
I was one of my favorite awards that I won at Flying Willows was Best Dressed T-shirt.
Nice.
Three out of 5 years that they had an award for the fashion club.
Not bad, not bad.
Yeah, it was,
It's off.
yeah,
It's young.
learn from my dad.
Old school.
Okay, we got 5 on all football clubs. Wait for this.
I know.
So hold on, it's 5 o'clock and it's going live, but I think it takes it a minute.
The circle of death.
Yeah, it says it's live, but I don't see anyone yet. Okay.
Good evening. This is Tuesday, August 11th, 2020, and this is the regular governing board meeting of the Santa Cruz Valley Unified School District number 35 governing board. And the time is 5 o'clock. We are meeting in the Daniel Fontes Governing Board room at the district office, 570 Camino Lito Galindo, Rio Rico, Arizona. And let us now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. Kramer.
I will be proud to lead you. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call. Mr. Joe Kramer.
Present.
Ms. Maria Newman. Here. Is attending telephonically. Thank you. Mr. John Hayes.
Here.
Mr. Rene Ramirez.
Here.
And myself. We have a quorum. Thank you. Adoption of the agenda, Mr. Verdugo.
No recommended changes, thank you.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Next is an executive session. So is there a motion to convene to executive session in the conference room?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Motion carries. We are now moving into executive session. Thank you.
Mr. Verdugo,
Yes.
could somebody call me on my phone from there?
Yes, we will do that.
Thank you.
Excuse me, John.
You're excused. All that for that short of a... I was wondering, we just turned
Is everyone still on the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm here.
So since this is a
Yeah, I'm here.
okay, since this is a new system, I'm afraid to turn the camera off. I'm not yet. I don't know how to pause it, so the camera's still running. Just an FYI.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hey, they all moved into the conference room?
They moved into the conference room, and I'm just
Okay,
yeah. It's just me and the camera and our viewers.
Okay.
Okay.
thanks, Jen.
You're welcome.
Hey, Shannon,
Yes.
Just FYI, everything you're telling us, we can hear it on the live feed.
Yes. That's my point. We're using a brand new system, and I'm not sure how to pause it, the recording. I'm afraid if I pause it, that I could stop the stream. So until I can ask that question, I'm just gonna leave it running.
I think somebody's line may not be muted.
Are you back?
The other ones over here.
Yeah. It's just a-
Yeah, that's all the others are still on hold.
Now we gotta wake up the machine.
And we are back live.
Oracle's Facsimile Neuro.
We're all here. Ms. Newman, have you returned?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so is there a motion to reconvene to regular session?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Ms. Newman,
I said aye.
we just didn't hear it. Thank you. Oh, okay,
Aye.
so, motion carries. Thank you. And superintendent's report, Mr. Verdugo.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. First, I'd like to say thank you to all of our parents and the student staff for the first week that we made a video announcement, but I just wanted to thank them again for all of their hard work during that first week. And when we start a new year in a new way for the first time, it's always interesting to see what we don't know and things that we did well and try to make ourselves better. So I appreciate everybody's work. I also want to share with the board that I did write with our team a letter to the editor, just thanking the parents and informing them about our technology plan, because I know that now more than ever that's an important piece of how we do things, and to let the community know that we've invested a lot and will continue to invest. I was notified today that we still have 460 Chromebooks that have not come in, and it may be a little bit longer, and that's one of the reasons that we went initially with one per family until we can get those in, because I guess the U.S. shut down another Chinese plant where these were being built. So it's becoming a national issue with technology not being able to come in. So we appreciate our parents' patience as we continue to work through that. Again, as I shared, we started some video updates from our school sites because we felt that it's important to continue to communicate, and we're unable to do it in person for the most part. So being able to at least talk to the camera, and they can interact and see who we are, and keep that in their mind of who we are, and so we will be able to continue to do that. Also started a interview because we didn't have our normal welcome back, so we wanted to make sure that we recognized the teachers and students, and so we did our Teacher of the Year, Ms. Claudia St. Clair, our Classified Employee of the Year, Maritza Visego, and then we did a student, Ms. Giselle Bojorquez, and it was very interesting for me to be on the other end asking questions for a change, and finding out a little bit about them so that our community can know who these people that we are, that we say are above the bar, that have really exemplified hard work in what we do as a district. And another piece of good news today, Yamileth Barcelo was named to the Governor's Youth Commission, so representing our community. So she'll be one of, I think, 16 students that will be from across the state representing their communities, advising the governor on issues, especially related to education and students. So congratulations to her. And then also just wanted to share with the board and the community that I was notified by the county that we have two write-in candidates, and we have Mr. Kramer as the incumbent, who will be on the ballot, but we do have two write-in candidates that will be vying for board membership to fill Ms. Newman's position. So, thank you.
Could you repeat that, Mr. Verdugo, again?
We have two write-in candidates that have filled the appropriate paperwork.
I got you, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, governing board member report. Mr. Kramer?
I'll defer to last.
Okey-doke. Ms. Newman?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hayes?
Yes, ma'am, couple of items. At today's county board meeting, this county superintendent announced that he is working on trying to raise funds to purchase at least 250 Chromebooks for the school districts to be shared amongst the school districts, as well as working on a program to get people to donate their used laptops that can be refurbished and handed out to families to be able to use for the distance learning. The other thing is, as the results of the county testing blitz, they tested over 1,800 people over the course of a couple of days, and the positivity rate for those tests was only 3.8% for the county, which is good news. And apparently it was noted that the positivity rate that the state currently has for us, which is much, much higher, is based on the fact that the places that were doing the testing previously in the county were only giving the test to people who were showing symptoms to begin with. So our positivity rate may be much lower, so hopefully that will help things here in the near future for us. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. Mr. Ramirez?
Yes, I know you guys know that John Fanning is a good friend of mine, but even if he weren't, I would be saying the same thing. I think that he really knocked himself out in putting together the return to play guidelines for us. Wow. I was really impressed when I read that on the agenda. I looked at it. John, if you're out there and you hear me, nice job. You did a fantastic job. You just really worked hard. You can see that you worked so hard at doing that. And so hats off to you for that, my friend. And Mr. Estrada, thank you for the shirt. I don't know if it's directly from him. I assume it is, but thank you for the shirt. And Mr. Verdugo, too, for the shirts. Thank you to all of you who gave us these two shirts. They're really nice. Really love that Hawk shirts. Cool. And I'd also like to talk about Carlos Villarreal. Congratulations to him on signing On Running as he pursues his dream of making it to the Olympics. I happened to see that on Facebook, and I think that's just awesome. That is really awesome. So, congrats to Carlos Villarreal.
Thank you. Okay, and I'll go ahead. Yeah, the t-shirts, thank you. It just wouldn't be the start of a year without, a t-shirt, so thank you so much. Compliments to all the sites because they're doing such good social media, and it's informative and it's making things very personal, and everybody's doing a really good job. Congratulations to Teacher of the Year, Claudia, excellent, and Classified, and everybody from each of their sites, really well done. And yeah, thank you, Mr. Verdugo, for the letter to the editor. That was really concise and explained the entire situation, and I think that's just always good to keep it out there for people. And you want to be?
No, I would like going last time too, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate that, thank you.
So, Ms. Newman, did you have anything at this point?
She went first.
We're done with, okay, so you
Yes,
are the
yeah,
rep.
I am
You're
going.
wrapping?
Thank you. Oh, yeah, have a good one.
So, anyway, yes, thank you. I want to thank Mr. Verdugo. Yes, that was a very good message, I saw it, and I think that always making sure we have good PR, and you're certainly doing that again, and that's a good point, because you know that we're doing well when you hear very little complaints, right? And you see very little chatter online and everything else. You know that everyone's, because a lot of times you're going to not hear too much of the good, you're just going to hear the negative, and we're hearing very little negative, if any. So I know that's a good message. Also, yes, thank you for the t-shirts. They look very good when you wear them into Home Depot and Walmart and Nogales. I really appreciate that. So I try to do that on Saturdays and or Sundays, and with my Mountain View cap or my San Cayetano cap that I have, so they match well. With that saying too, yes, John, that's a very good message, and I think that's great. I know that, just to pony up on that or piggyback off that, is that I have a gentleman who works with ADOT, and they were testing in Nogales with the spit tests that they are now incorporating, which the state is now utilizing. I know, Mr. Verdugo, you had chatted with me something about that. I know that I don't want to break, steal your thunder or anything on that. But I think that's a very good, because if the state is starting to look at that, I know ASU was going across the board. That's why they're bringing everybody back, because they're going to be constantly testing. So I think that's a good plan. And like John said, the more you test, the numbers come down, and certainly those are the positives that we all want to see, I think. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and next we have the Riverview High School expansion and bond project update. Mr. Verdugo.
Not much to report on that. Just with the opening of school, we had a couple of meetings to determine kind of location for the ag building down at the ag farm, and working on that, as well as just updating some of the drawings and equipment for food service areas. And again, as I mentioned before, the testing has begun on the buildings that to be removed. So we're looking at all of those things moving forward, and we'll be working with Shannon and Communications to produce some kind of before and after pictures and videos and your bond dollars at work, type of thing, so that we can keep the community updated. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay, SCD 35 District Learning Plan submitted to ADE. Mr. Verdugo.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Shadler and Dr. Linderville and Isela and all of our team members at Julieta for working, in Megan and the CIA for working really hard to get this distance learning plan put together. Because before we could start with any type of instruction, you had to have your distance learning plan complete. We had some experience with the spring of doing our learning plan then. And so the team worked really hard to put it together. And it has all of the different aspects of the requirements, from minutes, how we are taking attendance, and I know that there were some questions about some of those things. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Shadler to start, since he was the one that signed off on that we met all of the requirements, turned it in. But then also tonight, as part of the distance learning plan, because it can be amended and changed, and what we're asking the board to do after we've reviewed it is to, one, approve it, but then also authorize me as the superintendent to make any adjustments based on any future executive orders or legislative changes, so that we can do that in a timely manner. And then, of course, we would update the board at that point. So, Mr. Shadler?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Verdugo. And I briefly like to echo your comments. So, a number of, or your thanks rather, a number of people helped assemble this document. It is 21 pages long when all is said and done, and it's very comprehensive. It's not simply limited to what sort of distance learning program will you use, but it's, do you have procedures in place to cover things such as attendance, teacher and staff expectations on what they'll be expected to do in the distance learning model, connectivity of the back end of your network, so to speak, as well as information regarding obviously the curriculum, which is what first and foremost what its purpose is, but it was very comprehensive and required a significant number of people to contribute. Of course, the financial piece is also very important, so thanks to the business office for that. As Mr. Dugo said, this has been submitted and approved by ADE, so we're in good standing right now. There's nothing further to be done, but it's before you tonight for your awareness, but also approval of making sure we have to make any adjustments moving forward. As you know, things are happening very, very rapidly, and we would just want to be able to make any adjustments frankly, with prior approval, with the caveat that we would obviously inform the board at the next board meeting. But if we had to make an adjustment quickly without a board meeting on the near horizon, we would like permission to be able to do that. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions that I can attempt to answer.
Let's see. Mr. Ramirez, do you have any questions?
No, I just had a comment. It made me once again think about what Mr. Hayes said about adapting, and I like that we have the flexibility in there for the superintendent to, adapt to the situation as we move on, because this is such a fluid one. Again, this this is such a very fluid situation, so I'm glad that we're giving the superintendent tonight the ability to adapt to such a thing. I think it was very well said, by the way, Mr. Hayes. I think that's so true. It's very, very true.
Mr. Hayes?
No questions, but also a comment. I think a lot of this is pointing to the fact that we really need to find ways to work with the powers that be, not only at the county but the state level, to broaden the broadband capabilities within our community, because, you know, unfortunately, this is probably not going to be the last time we see something like this happen. And the better prepared we can be for our families, I think the better off we're going to be.
If I may, Ms. Hogan, may I make a comment? Just so Mr. Hayes and the board are aware, there are some conversations at the county. I was able to connect some community members who have reached out to me with ideas about exactly what Mr. Hayes is referring to, and I put them in touch with Mr. Young, the deputy to Mr. Velasquez, and Mr. Secor from our district participated in a meeting already, so that sort of conversation is happening, and I just want to make the board aware. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Ms. Newman?
I just want to compliment Mr. Taylor on the great job he does all the time with his team. Thank you very much for keeping our kids on the top of the learning curve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Kramer?
No, I think that's very, very good, very good, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions. It's incredibly thorough and very well done by your team. Thank you. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the distance learning plan as submitted and authorize superintendent to make any modifications needed due to COVID-19 pandemic or any additional legislative or governor executive orders?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Bye.
Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, online remote school opening update and in-person metrics review. Mr. Verdugo.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, we had, obviously the technology is a big part of what we're doing currently, and so trying to make sure that we have those up to date and trying to incorporate new things that we've purchased, as well as new curriculum and things that we're utilizing and going to be utilizing. So we're still working through those. But tonight I just wanted to focus more on the metrics that came out and kind of give the board an idea of the direction that we are recommending. And so you have the safely returning in-person instruction that has the metrics, and specifically page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all kind of have information of what those metrics are statewide, and then how that relates to each county. And as Mr. Hayes was talking about, the positivity was at 14, I actually created a sheet for the board. It was at 14.4%, and so the next benchmark update will be this Thursday coming up, and so I'm assuming it would be much lower than what it is. And if that is the case, that if it does move below the 7%, then that would be week 1 of below 7%. And then that would mean then if it would follow the next week, then it would be, again, made in the moderate, and then that benchmark would be met, and all 3 benchmarks would be met. And so the reason that I bring that up is because I know there is a lot of, concern on one end of teachers and families about coming back too soon because of how the virus, anytime we've felt like we were, especially in our county, where we were at 3 cases or 10 cases, and then all of a sudden it is to where we are now, and the feeling that we want to make sure we're cautious. So utilizing those metrics, we had a conversation with the county, with County Health Department, with Jeff Terrell, and then we had Dr. Williams from Mariposa and all of the other stakeholders in the health as well as the education community. And so a lot of discussion on, what are the next steps and questions about the metrics, and when we meet them, what is the time frame for us to then begin our hybrid and in-person instruction. So we went back and forth, and we couldn't necessarily get to a set point. The first conversation that we had was that, okay, once they're met, maybe we wait 2 weeks, an additional 2 weeks to give parents, teachers time to adjust and all of those type of things. And then after that meeting, or we rescheduled another meeting for next Thursday for us to come back with the county superintendent, organizing it, and all of the superintendents from the different districts, again with the health department and the Mariposa pediatrician, Dr. Williams, to give us some feedback on what we want to present as a plan. And so what I am going to recommend to the board, and again, this is not for approval tonight because we still will take it to that meeting on the 20th, is that we, again, and I talked to a lot of teachers, and including the association, wanted to get their feedback because I know that there is, again, still a lot of fear. I mean, just to be honest, there is a lot of fear of, of coming back too soon. So looking at the metrics and the way they are, and as Mr. Hayes just mentioned, that with the new testing blitz, we could be very soon where we're meeting the benchmarks. But it would still be in the moderate range. And so my proposal, and I'll explain the rationale behind it, is that I would propose that we go the entire first quarter with our current model, even if we do meet the benchmarks. One, to alleviate any anxiety that we have from our teachers and staff. Also to make sure that we're meeting those benchmarks for a longer period than 2 weeks, and making sure they're in place and that we're following through. And also that we have the continuity of instruction, because I think that's the thing that when we talk to a lot of teachers, and what if we come back and then we have a spike again, then we have to now pull back, and and it disrupts the models for the students. So our hope is that if we push it out towards the end of the first quarter, that we would then have the continuity. We would hopefully move from moderate to mild at that point, and it would be a consistent, and we'd have the protocols in place. Teachers would feel comfortable coming back. Students, parents would be comfortable coming back. And again, it would keep the continuity of instruction. And so the other side of that is that we also been working and discussing with Mariposa Clinic and Dr. Lunderville, working with them about getting all of our students that would be coming back in the hybrid tested during that first week of October, if we could schedule it, as well as our teachers. Because and it would be the spit test from ASU, working through them to get that rapid results, as well as the accuracy, because there's a lot of concern with students that are asymptomatic. That has been a big trend. And so we want to make sure that they're tested, because that age group, when we bring them back, the last thing we would want them to do is infect other people and things. So we want to make sure that when we do bring them back, that we have that in place. So we're working with the Mariposa Clinic to do that, so that any student that will be coming back for the hybrid would then be tested, teachers would be tested, and then we would start right after our fall break. So it gives us also a natural break when we would transition. So that's, again, the rationale that I'm proposing. That it's a cautious one, I know, and I'm usually more on the other side of things, of throwing caution to the wind, but I also know that I want to make sure that our teachers are comfortable, parents, students, and that we do have a solid learning plan in place, as Mr. Karen was talking about, that we are going to continue to develop and get better at. And if we transition into something different too soon, then have to come back, it could disrupt that continuity. So this would allow us to have that in place, and then again, plan it. And then the other side of it is if all of a sudden we get to that September 24th benchmark right before October, and we haven't met, or we have a change and spike, you know, Mr. Kramer gave me the idea, I'll give him credit for it, is that we would then, at that time, possibly look at maybe modifying the calendar, and instead of going on fall break, continue on, and then add that fall break to December, like the universities are doing, and have a longer break in December when we know that there may be some flu-like illnesses that may spike and things like that. So, so that would be another option that we could explore, but by doing the quarter, it gives us that opportunity. So then the other question with that is then athletics, and then we're going to talk about athletics. And the AIA came out with their calendar and really didn't change anything. They kind of said, here you go, you know, it's up to you, but here's what the calendar is. And then we know, like just we were talking before the meeting, that we have the Pac-12 and everybody else in the university saying we're going to shut down athletics until January. But yet in high school we're good to go. So one of the things that, yeah, some high schools. So what we're, and I'm working with Mr. Fanning, looking at that calendar, but adjusting instead of for us, you know, pushing up to October, and that we would utilize the metrics at that point, and once we meet the metrics, then we can start based on the AI calendar wherever we're at that point. So that gives us some flexibility with the athletic side of things. And then all of the things that you saw and Mr. Fanning will talk about in his presentation, or if answer any questions, would be in place. All the protocols would be in place, and the IA did give some flexibility of entering at different times. So if we meet that, the county meets the benchmarks in a month, then it kind of puts us right on track with the September 7th start, and so that does give us some flexibility to do that. But again, I just wanted to make sure that we're being very cautious. We want to do what's best for the health and safety of our students in our community, but also think about the instruction side of things, you know, because I think that's the one thing I do not want to disrupt. If we're getting, you know, and teachers will tell you, they get into that groove, in a positive groove, and you get, you know, the instruction going, you get your class situated from a classroom management standpoint, and then all of a sudden now we're switching a model, and now we're getting them back in class, and then all of a sudden we get a spike, and then we're back to home and having to restart some of those things. So I hope that by being cautious that we alleviate some of that and have a plan in place. Gives our parents the opportunity to plan as well, to know what they're going to be facing for the next few months. But now the other side of it is if for whatever reason all of a sudden we are in the mild all of a sudden for a long period of time, then we can still evaluate at that point and then transition if we feel that it's necessary. But again, I think that having that set date puts us in a good situation. So with that, any questions that I can answer about that recommendation or about the metrics or any of those type of things?
Mr. Ramirez?
Well, I have quite a bit to say, so I ask for your indulgence as my colleagues, please.
So, you mentioned the fear. Yes, there is a lot of fear out there among the teachers. I know for a fact I'm in the trenches every day. And so I was very happy to hear that you're contemplating moving the opening date to a later date, because we should, obviously we care about the safety of them and everybody here involved, our community, everybody. And of course, nobody wants a symptomatic student to take this home. As has been pointed out by several board members, we have, people that live with their tata or their nana and grandparents, and so, especially in our community. So I was very happy to hear about that, and I'm glad that you addressed that for the sake of the teachers, because I'm sure they're very tuned in to your meetings. So, but I wanted to just make a suggestion as a teacher that's in the trenches. Again, for my colleagues, it's only a suggestion, okay? I've been, like everybody here at Rio Rico, we've been working through Google Meet. And there's a lot of risk there, as you're well aware of, and I'm sure Mr. Shadler, having heard from colleagues and stuff.
there's risk there with, the students who can sign up. Just to draw a picture of you. You have 16 students on the screen that you can see as a teacher. A student signs out and another student pops into that screen. And say that you have, like in my case, I have 35 students in a period. Then 19 of them are out there anonymous. They put their icon on, you don't know who they are, you can't identify them. And as you're teaching, you really don't have a chance to be coming up to the computer to be identified. So there's a lot of risk there, and I'm sure you've heard some of the harrowing stories of things that have happened to even the best, the most veteran teachers. And so with that, holding that in mind, I would just strongly suggest to you and your team that our colleagues try to limit that amount of time on Google Meet. Now, you can't do it all the way because obviously you need to be able to explain things to students like I do. I have to explain the alphabet. There's just no way around it. Of course, I brought in some YouTube videos for my kids to be able to see that, and you can bring in a lot of really nice things into the Google Classroom. And I would strongly suggest that they bring a lot of videos and a lot of other things, a lot of other materials into the classroom, that they do a lot of written instruction. It's good for the kids too to follow the written instruction, although the videos are really nice, the explanations and so forth. But I would strongly suggest that once you really got your basics down, you try to do as much as possible on, through the sessions or the classwork, especially the classwork section of Google, the Google Classroom, because I really feel that we should try to wean them off, not entirely, but not wean them off, but try to limit the amount of time on Google Meet, because really, it threatens the integrity of the teacher and the district. And I'm sure we're all going to hear harrowing stories on the news about those students that are remaining anonymous out there and are, making comments to teachers. I'm not going to repeat all the stuff that I've heard, but trust me, I've heard lots about the comments that they can make. They take pot shots at teachers. And I'm very concerned about that because, again, it questions the integrity of the classroom and of our district. We don't want to end up on the news out there, with those kids, because they can, for instance, they can do something, and a parent could be watching that, and this is what is going on, and the teacher is totally unaware because they can't keep an eye on those other 19, as I mentioned, and they can film them. They can take out their cell phones and they can start filming that, and then before you know it, the news has a hold of this, and then, it breaks loose here, okay? And so I would strongly suggest that we try to haul things in, like for instance, for a math teacher, I'm just going to give an example. They can haul in the explanations on Khan Academy. There are a lot of great explanations by teachers out there, and then we don't run the risk this way. And that's just one example. I gave the example of teaching the alphabet, okay? That's another one. So I would strongly suggest that with regard to this issue, because I'm very concerned about it. And trust me, we're going to see a lot of stuff in the news about this. There are going to be people who are going to get a hold of this, and they're going to be telling us, see, it doesn't work, and your online schooling doesn't work, and this is why we should be physically together. And they don't understand how dangerous it is for us to be physically together. A lot of people out there who, even people who have great educations, think that they understand all the ins and outs of the classroom. But they don't realize that you have big groups of people, even if we divvy them up, and they're close together. I mean, even maintaining 3 feet between the kids is going to be a challenge. And, we lay out the best plans, but again, these kids are not automatons, and so there's a lot of danger. So once again, I'll go back to what you started off, or what you ended with, which is the safety of everybody, and I'm sure the teachers are very in tune with this right now. But I'm not just speaking for the teachers. I think it's very wise for our community and everybody involved, and I'm very happy with your decision to have a person at the board meeting room here to protect all the people in the district office as well. I think that's excellent, by the way. And okay, I'm sorry, I know that was long-winded, but I'm trying to do it to help teachers in our district and to help Steve and everybody here, and Melissa and everybody in the team. Thank you. Thank you for your indulgence.
Okay,
I've got nothing at this time, thank you.
thank you. Ms. Newman?
Thank you. I just want to say that I just think that the job a lot of our teachers are doing is just absolutely phenomenal. They use a lot of Google Classrooms, and some of them have been inviting me to see those Google Classrooms, and they are just absolutely wonderful. They're just so inventive, and it's just amazing what they get done on a day-to-day basis. I'm very happy with what Mr. Verdugo is saying about postponing till the end of the first semester. And I just wanted to share a couple things. The reason why there is so much fear, and I know this because some of the teachers are actually, and this is what scared me the most, I guess, over the weekend, is that they're actually looking to websites to start their own living wills and wills. And that was the one thing that struck me as, I know they're so fearful now, because young people should not be thinking about wills and things like that. And when I saw that, and that made me realize, I think we need to do something to kind of help them along. There was a report today, I believe, from one of the Phoenix panels, and it said that Arizona is at the top for kids testing positive in the COVID-19. And that's very scary that it came out, because the virus doesn't go away. And just because the school day is over, it doesn't mean that the COVID is over as well. And, you know, I know a lot of people will say, oh, you know, this and that and the other, but it's still there. It's still going to be with us for quite a while. And the third thing I would like to say for us to just kind of reflect on, and I think maybe Mr. Verdugo has heard this. This is from Dr. Douglas Massingville. A school superintendent said something profound in his address canceling school for the next 3 weeks. In the end, it will be impossible to know if we overreacted or did too much. But it will be quite apparent if we underreact or did too little. And I've had those words with me for the last 2 weeks because, as Mr. Verdugo and all of you know, I also work in the schools, and I'm also thinking about all these other things. You know, when are we going to start? How do we have to measure the distance between desks? Is our plexiglass strong enough? Are masks going to work? Are they going to keep them on? How do you have proper distancing between kids in the hallway? There's so much to think about, and sometimes it will overwhelm you. So I can only imagine what Mr. Verdugo and his team is going through. So I do appreciate everything you do, and I know you're doing a great job, but I am truly grateful, and I know our teachers, our staff, our kids, and our parents in the community will greatly appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes, I just have, I guess I have a couple questions. One, Mr. Verdugo, I had asked you, you said you were going to ask Steve Shadler about giving us a little more breakdown of the technology, or the technology resources.
Yeah, so the insurance for...
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Shadler, would you like to share that? I know that is a future agenda item for approval of the fees, but if you just kind of go through what that entails.
Yes, were you referring, I'm sorry, to the technology fees?
The insurance.
The insurance for the parents, well, yeah, I just want to get an idea. I know we've talked about it, but really haven't seen a breakdown of just how much is this, and what, because I know it's out of Wisconsin, whatever, but anyway.
Yes, okay,
more about the
I think I understand now the question. So last year, we assessed a flat rate of $25 for damages to Chromebooks, and that proved to be not very effective or helpful for families or for the district, because not every item costs $25 and others cost much more than that. So we adjusted our internal fees, which the board did approve at the previous meeting. In addition to that, however, we've done some research and learned from some other districts, most notably Dysart up in Phoenix, that there is a private insurance company that you can work with. And the cost for that for our devices it's $22. It's optional, first of all. The families do not have to accept it, but there's $22 if you have a traditional Chromebook, or it's $27 if it's a touchscreen Chromebook. And that allows, if the family opts in for that, then they would, just like with car insurance, for example, if there's a damaged key or whatnot, they don't have to pay that claim. The company pays for them. How it works is they send us in advance a number of commonly broken items like keys pop off or cracked screens, things like that. And so we do the repair on site. And then at the end of the year, we would return whatever items were not used for our inventory. And like I said, the students would not be charged. The only deductible, I think there's a $100 deductible for the touchscreen device itself, if it is damaged, beyond a reasonable repair. But other than that, that's the only deductible factor that I'm aware of in the program.
So Steve, thank you. I guess then you can reassure me. So if I have a 6th grade boy and he's got a nice Chromebook and I pay that $25 for the Chromebook, and that 6th grade boy damages it, I've already paid the $25 for the insurance. That insurance covers that broken Chromebook.
Correct. Now, I do think, again, if accidental damage and so on, yes. I mean, if the boy does something totally reckless, then, I think there's a different situation, right? But yes, for the general rule, you're stating it exactly correct.
Right, you got a 6th grade boy running across to his friend's house, whatever, I'm just giving a scenario. But yes, so that is a good deal then. That private insurance sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And the number, I don't have the exact number of as you're distributing the information to parents, or the Chromebooks rather to parents, we were trying to get an idea of how many would be interested. And as I said, please don't quote me, but I want to say it's in the neighborhood of 400 people that expressed interest and a willingness to move forward if given that option.
Well, I think that's wonderful. That was, that's very good for them. So, I guess that was my other question. The other thing, we were talking a little bit about sports, but I'll bring that back around. Because certainly, the next one is, or Mr. Fanning, but I certainly want to obviously discuss what we were discussing. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay.
Madam President,
Yes.
I had a question for the superintendent. Well, not a question, but it's really for Steve. But I forgot about this because we had discussed this, and you said that I could ask tonight. I could ask Steve or Melissa or anybody about the attendance thing that I had talked to you about this afternoon. I think it was yesterday.
Dr. Lunderbill, so Mr. Ramirez has a question about how attendance is being recorded. Whether teachers have to record daily for present or absent, or if we just do what we've traditionally done and then our clerks take care of the rest.
Well, before she answers, I just want to say that I know that in some districts they are putting a C down. The ADE required that, as you guys know, the ADE has certain requirements for attendance. In my particular case, we're putting C's down for every kid who is present and A's for every kid who is absent. And then I talked to you about, and you said that you had parent attestations. And I was wondering, Melissa, if you could just give me just briefly, just tell me how this works, because from what I understand, they do this once a week, and I was wondering how you get accountability for this, because it means money for our district. If she's not there, then Steve.
Would you like me to answer that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good evening. So as Mr. Verdugo explained, I believe that the district that you work in uses a different system called Power School. We use what's called Synergy.
Right, I understand that.
What we did this afternoon is we went and looked at exactly how we were reporting and how we were going to ADE is probably going to request statistics by the end of the semester about the percentages of students who participated in distance learning programs and their absences. So we added the following. We added 3 additional codes to Synergy. We added DLE, which is distance learning excused absence, DLU, which is a distance learning unexcused absence, and DLP, which is distance learning present. So
what was the last one? Excuse me.
Present.
Is
DLP.
not
DL.
in attendance.
Okay, gotcha. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
If any student is not in attendance when the class starts, the teacher does make a note of that in an external in the Google Classroom gradebook. Then if you look at the distance learning plan, it kind of gives the steps of the teacher then gives that information to the attendance clerk, and the attendance clerk follows up with either making the phone call or marking the student unexcused in this case, until we're able to verify if there was an issue that occurred with the student's attendance. For the month of August, we will be using those three codes in Synergy until we're given additional information. But we will be able to run attendance reports as often as we'd like, and we'll be able to have better statistics on student participation. So it just looks a little bit different than what you're describing, just
Right.
because the systems are different, but the code that goes to the state is the same.
And our teachers do not have to enter the DLP or the DL, different acronyms. They don't have to, they're just letting the office know if somebody is absent. And then the
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I want. I wasn't really so focused on the absences as I was on how you proved that they were present for the ADE. So you guys use attestations every week, right?
So how does the attestation work?
I couldn't hear your question about the attestation.
Yeah, how does that work? How does the attestation work?
The attestation that parents signed, and if you look at our distance learning plan, it kind of breaks down. It is kind of the parent's contract. The parents are saying that they will ensure that students who are participating in distance learning, and when I say distance learning in this case, it's students who are participating in distance learning for the whole year. Those are the students who log in and use Edgenuity, 612, Accelerate, K5. It states that the student will participate for the given number of minutes that is required by the state to be considered in attendance for that day. So, for example, students who are participating in distance learning for the entire year, and I'll use my 8th grade daughter as an example. She gets up every morning like a normal student. She logs into Google Classroom. She marks herself as awake and ready to learn, and then she logs into Edgenuity. So there's contact with facilitator every morning, and then she logs into Edgenuity, and that teacher or staff member who's responsible for monitoring the online Edgenuity students, they're able to see that she's in there for the required number of minutes, and they also are able to send those reports to our attendance clerk, who then will follow up with students. But the attestation is saying that as parents, we are committed and agreeing to making sure that our students complete the number of minutes per day that's required.
And this, Melissa's done, the attestations are done by the parents electronically every week? That's what I understand, is that right?
For the month of August, we were able to be approved to use an attestation for the entire month of August, where the parents are attesting until we were able to get further guidance. So when we get into September, prior to September, but in the next week or so, we will talk as a group about how we're going to move forward, and that would be one of those cases where we're amending or adding to our distance learning plan, and Mr. Verdugo would then direct myself or Mr. Sadler to add the information for September. So we're doing it. For the first month, it was month by month, and then now moving into September, we'll talk about if it's going to be, if parents are going to attest weekly or daily, but for the first month, it was for the month.
I see. And so ADE is good with that, huh? That's okay.
Correct. ABE gave us flexibility in how we collect and monitor attendance, as long as we have a plan and we're following it.
I was just curious because, of course, we all know that this means big time bucks for our district. Good, thank you.
No,
Thank
we
you.
do certainly understand and respect the funding that is tied to student
Yeah, I bet
attendance.
you do. So, but thank
Rita
you.
Sanchez is dedicated to making sure it's daily, that every student is accounted for and every ADM minute is counted and collected.
I had a question for Mr. Shadler with regard to kindergarten. I wanted to ask about that too. How's it going, Steve, with kindergarten? Because I can imagine what a challenge that would be to teach online. I was just wondering if you could just give me the short and skinny about what's going on with kindergarten.
Well, I think you're right. I think you hit it on the head. I mean, it's a challenge. I just think philosophically it's a challenge. We know that our online program that we've put in place for the distance learning, we're working through that. There are a number of challenges with that. For the families that are in the hybrid, they still have the advantage of seeing their teacher. Most of what I've heard is anecdotal, and in fact, just this morning I heard from one person who said it breaks my heart to see a kindergartner trying to reach out to their teacher, via a screen. So I think there's a lot of that emotional heart tugging going on, but every day I can tell you that the coaches just met with the CIE team this afternoon, or this morning, going over, we're meeting pretty much every day, some group. I've met with the principals, the coaches and so on, trying to problem solve on a daily basis, all the different issues that are coming up. So it's going, but like I said, I just don't think it's a place where anybody really wants to be, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Yeah, I remember being a substitute, and that was the hardest job ever, being a substitute for a kindergarten teacher. My gosh, the little munchkins are very needy, and I can't imagine teaching them the basics over the internet, or them sitting there for any length of time. They're so rambunctious at that age too, and so I really just ask, and I just want to say I really feel for all the teachers that are teaching at those ages, those young ages. My gosh, I feel for you, and thank you for all that you do. And thank you guys for all you do to help them.
The one, on that note, the one item I suppose that people are still already thinking about is when we do hopefully come back to in-person school, kindergarten will be the one group of students that don't have that background. They'll have that first day of school. Even first graders know how to line up, know where the bathroom is, know where the cafeteria is, and so on. So that's something we're going to get all this training for the kindergartners on how to do online, which is new for everybody. But then when we do come back, those kindergarten teachers are going to have to, quite frankly, earn it all over again, which we will. We'll do it, but that's just another challenge on the horizon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We wrapped up that agenda item, and we can move on to the athletics update, Arizona Interscholastic Association calendar for fall athletics. Mr. Perduto.
Thank you. So again, as I mentioned, as part of my recommendation that Mr. Fanning's been working with Dr. Lunderville and Mr. Assad and myself to kind of identify when we would possibly start. And he's been attending a lot of meetings because it's kind of a moving target, and he's done a really nice job of having some different reentry phases and things, and of course the AI then said we're sticking, and here's when practice starts. We're still able to adjust and do some different things, but I'll go ahead and turn over to Mr. Fanning. I know he's had some meetings, and if he has any updates that he'd like to share. Mr. Fanning?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, district administration. Yes, I've been part of quite a few meetings over the past couple weeks, and one thing remains the same. It is a week-to-week discussion. Things change so quickly that the best laid plans sometimes can go awry. The first thing I want to mention is, with so many decision makers Sometimes the waters get muddy. We have the state and the governor, we have AIA, we have the county, the medical professionals and the metrics, and their efforts, and then we have the district. So when there's a lot of decision makers, it sometimes can get a little bit difficult. Like Mr. Verdugo said, it's a moving target. The phases that were part of the return to play guidelines, that was taken from NFHS, which is the National Federation of State High School Associations, as well as AIA. And what I did is I married them together and came up with a phases. So they're very, very similar to NFHS rules and the AIA guidelines. The AIA has recently, like Mr. Verdugo said, come out with their recommended first practice date, first competition date, and state championships. Those have been a big topic of discussion throughout Southern Arizona. In fact, yesterday we had a Southern Arizona AIA meeting. Well, it wasn't an AIA meeting, it was a Southern Arizona AD meeting, where all of the schools throughout the southern area of the state met to discuss moving forward what everyone's doing. And like I said before, there are districts that are all over the place. Bush Ridge and South Point began in June with phase 1. Sunnyside on August 10th. Casa Grande, August 17th. Miranda 17th. USD 17th. Douglas 24th. And then you have other schools, Ampine, Nogales, Catalina Foothills, who will not bring students physically on campus for athletics until they're physically on campus for academics. So there's so many different things happening out right now. And you also have to understand that as per the governor, it's based on county. And we participate in competition between Santa Cruz County, Cochise County, Pima County, Pinal County. So you're also looking at that as an added, mixture in that muddy water that I discussed earlier. Some of the information that was taken from the meeting yesterday, and these are, I'm going to try to quote as closely as I can. And this came from the TUSD director of TUSD, Dee Dee Wheeler, former University of Arizona standout. Her comment was, right now, we're just thinking about getting kids on the field. We're not even thinking about competition at this point. South Point brought up, that they're thinking about having parents drive their children to all competition, a lot like club sports do right now. Just because, transportation with social distancing would put 15 to 20 students on the bus. Well, in some sports like golf, that would work, but in most sports, that's not going to work. AIA is working on different schedules right now. That was something that was brought up. Like I stated earlier, week to week is how we're all learning. We're living right now as athletic directors. And then finally, the last thing I have to say about that meeting that I had yesterday is that AIA is coming out with an even more specific survey regarding start dates. So with that, our goal is to compete. We want to compete. But like the University of Arizona athletic director stated, the health, safety, and welfare of our student athletes has to come first. So that, we're going to be weighing that as we move forward with making decisions based on, county input, based on district input as we move forward. What we're doing in the meantime is we're really promoting, that the coaches contact their athletes, the ones that they know are going to be trying out, and giving them some workouts that they can do on their own. We're asking our athletes to make sure they get their paperwork turned in and completed, so that when we do start, there's no delay. And then, like I said, we're asking the coaches to not only submit workouts, but submit sport-specific techniques and drills that they can work on. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of what's been going on with the athletic department, not only in FCDUSD 35, but also throughout the state.
Questions?
Mr. Ramirez?
No, just a comment. You might run into a challenge, John, with competing if we have other districts that don't want to do this. As we know, is the situation right now. We have, you know, so other schools that are in our league, for instance. So, but good job, John. Thank you so much for all that you did. I read it, and you just did such a thorough job. I was really impressed. That's why I could tell that you spent a lot of time putting that together, and thank you for your presentation tonight.
Mr.
Thank
Hayes?
you.
Thank you. Actually, two questions for Mr. Fanning, because there are a couple of things that just kind of jumped out at me when I was reading this. That one just kind of stood out and really made me go, really? Which was boys lacrosse is considered high risk and girls lacrosse is moderate risk. I've seen lacrosse games. I couldn't tell much of a difference between the two, so I'm just kind of curious if that maybe came from somebody else.
That, that came from, I'm sure, the Phoenix area, in AIA, and also throughout the nation in NFHF. So yeah, I would agree they're probably equal in risk factors.
Yeah, and the other was, numerous places it made reference to cleaning the equipment in the locker rooms and whatnot. I would assume, and this may be more for Mr. Verdugo than for you, Mr. Fanning, that we'd make use of the equipment that we got instead of having to hand wipe everything down.
Yes, some, yeah, we still have, follow some of the protocol for wiping down, that's, but yes, and Dr. Lerma couldn't comment, but the power breezers are here and working, so.
And okay, my microphone's blank.
Mr. Hayes?
Mr. Hayes? Yeah, Mr. Hayes, I'm sorry. I've been in constant communication with Dr. Lunderville regarding, what we need in order to move forward, once we are allowed to start phase one. And I've also been in contact with our primary, she's going to be at all of our athletes prior to practice. If you read the phases, they have to get their temperature taken, and there have to be some questions regarding whether they have any symptoms of COVID. And that person, and I've already sat down with her in a meeting, is Anamon, our trainer. She's ready, willing, and able to make sure that all of our athletes prior to any type of practice or competition are COVID symptom free and are healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Newman?
Thank you, Mr. Fanning. A great job as usual. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newman.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. John, it's very thorough, very thorough. Hopefully this is your Bible that carries us through once we start phase one, because it is very good. I commend you for everything. You did it pretty well as far as everything goes for high school athletics. I will say this, and we talked about it in the beginning, but now I said I'll say it. The Pac-12, just the one they sent out is called the Health and Well-Being Consideration for Pac-12. And they listed, it's 12 pages. And they talked and they spoke in there, and they certainly hit areas that I know that we probably are not being hit. And that's not up to us, because like John, you said, that's the muddy waters, starting with the governor, going down to everyone else. However, we've got the U of A, and we've got flights to all three major universities now that have canceled all sports. They've canceled them now in the Pac-12 till starting in January. And they put in here, and I'm not going to get in verbatim because you guys, Dave, if you want to send it out or whatever, that's good. But what concerned me was I read yesterday when the Big Ten was talking about this, for those of you that are Big Ten supporters, our exercise, whatever, the high-class athletes, they're starting to find concerns that they could be subject to cardiac arrest. Even if they are asymptomatic, and even if they can perform, for some reason, they're saying that it may hit them in that area. That's why one of these reasons why they said they're postponing this sport. Again, I'm just saying that, I think this has to be shared. I know it's above us with AIA and stuff, but as a board, John, you said that Nogales is not starting until they bring them back. Well, if our universities are not doing this until January, I hope that our AIA and everyone else looks at the bigger picture of this. And that's what I have to say, and hopefully that, you know, it's always a good thing, but certainly like one of the presidents said yesterday, if we have one kid going to cardiac arrest, then we shouldn't have been playing sports. So I'll leave with that, and we'll go from there.
Understood.
Thank you.
Understood, thank you.
And I have no questions, but really it's a very cohesive document, and I think it will carry everyone through without a lot of ambiguity. So thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
And we can now move on to regulation review, GBGB-R, JICA-RB, KI-RB, face coverings. Mr. Verdugo.
Yeah, thank you. As part of the last executive order, there was a requirement that we have a regulation for face coverings. We already had, as I mentioned before, addressed it as part of our mitigation in our business learning plan. But we did update the regulation, and the reason it's a regulation versus a policy, because policy you have to go through the different process and for readings and that type of, and it's much more difficult to change. So as a regulation, if there are things that needed to be changed, then I could change it and then just bring it back as an update to the board. So we did update. I want to thank Ms. Quiroz and Dr. Lunderville for their work in getting this, and it did come from ASBA, and then it went to Udall Shumway for the attorneys, and Denise looked at it, and then our team with Dr. Lunderville and Julieta went through and reviewed it, and so that's where we're at. And the one thing I would highlight in there is that the cloth face coverage, but also in the executive order, it did mention shields, and so we incorporated that as well, that the shields would be, especially for students that need it, and we'll continue to look at different shield options for those that need it as well, to expand the face coverings. So any questions on any of the, because again, they are very similar, but again, it was a requirement as part of the executive order.
Any questions, Mr.
I have none, Madam President, thank you.
A couple of items, Madam President, thank you. Mr. Verdugo, a couple of things I think we should be considering with these as well is proper usage of the face mask. I know I've seen a number of people who keep the mask below their nose and things like that, which is not what the masks are helpful for. But also, yesterday there was, I can't remember which journal came out with a study on the effectiveness of the different face masks. And they did find that there were some types of masks are much more effective than others, and actually, I believe it was the fleece masks are basically the same as not wearing anything at all. So I think maybe having some sort of guidelines for people in terms of what types of masks are acceptable based on the science, so that we can at least, give them that heads up ahead of time, so that, if they're going out and making that purchase, they know what they should be getting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Newman?
No question.
Mr. Kramer?
No, thank you, Mr. Verdugo, for letting us know that it was well vetted from our attorneys and ASDA and our own attorneys. Thank you.
I continue to check with every doctor that I go to, and they say that the shield is far superior to a mask, so I don't know why masks they go in, but It's just a comment, and we do not have to approve these.
No.
These are just
Just
written in.
it's the policy is in place for, and then the regulation to address any of the administrative side of things.
So this was Governor Newsom?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, this is part of the executive order, and we put it in the regulation versus policy. That way we can adjust it as needed, because the policy is, as I mentioned, it has to, you go through the same vetting process, but approval and things, in this way we can do it as needed.
Thank you. Okay, propose and prioritize topics and possible dates and times for future board meetings. Mr. Ramirez.
I have nothing now, Madam President, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Hayes.
Just one item, when appropriate, because I know it's to a degree contingent also upon the override. But given the fact that we've been having to rearrange our schedules so much because of this pandemic, perhaps an update when appropriate on the looking at going to the calendar change for the school year, going to the year round.
Yep.
Ms. Newman.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Verdugo, I still haven't heard on those 2 items I requested about a month ago or maybe longer.
Yep,
If I can do something back on those.
Yep, they are on the future topics for the next board meeting, and we combined them because the SROs are not necessarily, we don't have them as part of our safety grant, but in the grant discussion, they fit within that. So, and Dr. Linderville will be writing an FYI as well. So we will have those 2 topics for the next agenda.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes, I just have one. It was brought up in January, and I don't think that we obviously lost track of it with what transpired here. But I believe Ms. Newman brought it up, and I don't know if she's referring to that. But it's certainly, once we get back and maybe into partial and maybe by November, we can get an update and a presentation of the scholarships and how they're distributed, how they're helping students from the last 2 years. I know that she's asked that in January. Certainly that's a few months away, but I would certainly like to get that before Ms. Newman leaves, because she brought it up. But I would certainly like to hear that as well. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, consent agenda. Any matter on the consent agenda will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed as a regular agenda item upon the request of any board member. Does any board member have any item they would like to have removed for separate discussion?
Madam President,
Yes.
I must have number 11 in this, please.
Number 11, all right. Anyone else, anything else?
I would like to remove number 11, specifically EPAR's academic stipend.
Does that work with you, Ms. Newman?
That's perfectly okay. I figured it would be, never mind. That's fine.
Okay.
Madam President, if I could just make the stipulation
Yes.
that it be a roll call vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Planning on it, thank you. Okay, so is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of item 11?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Call for the question, Madam President.
Alrighty, now on this one, I don't think we need to do a roll call, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, number 11, Mr. Ramirez and Ms. Newman, you have both requested that this be removed for separate discussion.
Pardon?
Just again,
Number 11.
Yes.
I will defer to Mr. Ramirez.
Okay,
thank you. Yes, I request too, Madam President, that we just do a roll call vote. I think it's very wise, and that's it. I don't have any discussion.
Call for the question, please.
all right. So,
And it's a specific individual, the instructional
Academic. Yes,
academic stipend
academic.
for Nathan Szyszkowski.
So, yeah, we're
Yeah,
specifying.
yeah.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve the academic stipend for Nathan
Szyszkowski.
Eshkowski?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote. Mr. Ramirez?
Nay.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
Ms. Newman?
Aye.
Mr. Kramer?
Abstain.
And chair votes aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, governing board meeting evaluation. Who would like to volunteer to evaluate?
Madam President, thought it was a worthwhile meeting with a lot of valuable information for the path that we have to take from this point forward, given all things that are considered.
Thank you. Okay. Having no further business, this meeting adjourns at 6:40.